The anime begins with a thrilling chase scene, as a young man in a black hood, Aozawa Akatsuki, sprints through a dense forest, desperately trying to evade the pursuit of two maids sent by the powerful Belittled kingdom. As we soon discover, Akatsuki is an adventurer from the human world who has stumbled into the fantastical realm of isekai, and through a series of incredible events, has become one of the kingdom's most celebrated heroes. But despite his newfound fame and fortune, Akatsuki longs to return to his world. And so, on this fateful day, he sets out to escape the palace and return home. But his plans are thwarted when the princess of Belittled, the beautiful and cunning Listy Elde Surefied, dispatches her two loyal servants to bring him back to the palace by any means necessary. However, after finally being caught by the two maids, Akatsuki's determination to escape did not falter. In a moment of desperation, he snatched the bras belonging to the two maids, causing them to feel humiliated and embarrassed. This incident earned him the nickname Wicked Warrior among the palace servants, and much to his surprise he likes it. Upon returning to the palace, Akatsuki was met by Princess Listy, and he announced his intentions to leave the isekai world soon, as his mission to defeat the feared Devil King, Garanth, had been accomplished. As Princess Listy pleaded with Akatsuki to stay, tears streaming down her face, he found himself struggling with his own emotions. In a moment of impulsiveness, he leaned in and kissed her, hoping to calm her down. But his actions only served to shock and anger her, who immediately slapped him and stormed off, leaving Akatsuki alone. Before she left, Akatsuki made a promise to Princess Listy that if ever she needed his help, he would come to her side no matter what. With a heavy heart, he set out for the human world, but not before he took a beautiful girl from the isekai world with him, hiding her in a bag. Upon arriving in his bedroom in the human world, Akatsuki opened the bag, revealing a stunning girl with pink hair. She was completely naked, and he couldn't help but feel a surge of desire as he looked upon her. But as he reached out to touch her, the girl, named Miyu Aozawa, suddenly woke up, her eyes wide with shock at finding herself in an unfamiliar place. Then Akatsuki quickly explained the situation to her, and how he had defeated her father, the Demon King. The next day, Akatsuki and Miyu set out for Babel Academy, a prestigious institution that only accepts gifted children with unique abilities. As they walked to the school, Akatsuki stressed the importance of keeping her true identity a secret and instructed her to refer to him as Big Brother and to avoid revealing anything about her past or background. Upon their arrival at the academy, Akatsuki and Miyu were put through a series of rigorous entrance exams, including a written test, a health examination, and a dual combat test. As they progressed through the tests, she grew increasingly nervous, worried that her non-human nature would be discovered. Akatsuki, sensing her fear, reassured her, reminding her to remain calm and act normal. He reminded her that showing emotions or expressions of fear would only attract suspicion and that it was crucial for her to blend in with the other students. Finally, the results of the health examination were announced, and the doctor declared that both Akatsuki and Miyu were in excellent health with no problems at all. As Miyu and Akatsuki prepared for their one-on-one duel against the trainers, Miyu selected a sword as her weapon and honed her magic to enhance its power. She was determined to easily defeat her opponent with a single strike. Meanwhile, Akatsuki was focused on his preparations, readying himself for battle. But just as they were about to begin, an unexpected event occurred. The Academy's head of student affairs, Hikami Kyoya, approached Miyu and launched an attack on her without warning. Then Akatsuki reacted quickly, shielding her from harm, and demanded an explanation for Kyoya's actions. However, Kyoya brushed off the incident, claiming that he simply wanted to test Akatsuki's reflexes. He then proceeded to directly challenge Akatsuki's strength, asking him to destroy a crystal ice wall in the middle of the arena. Confident in his abilities, Akatsuki stepped forward to face the crystal wall with determination. He intended to destroy it without the use of weapons, but Miyu warned him that the wall was powered by magic. As he could not use magic, he focused his strength on his hands and unleashed a powerful punch onto the wall. The impact caused the wall to crack and eventually crumbled. Kyoya, who had been observing the test, smiled in satisfaction. He declared that Akatsuki and Miyu had officially been accepted into the Babel Academy. After the test was over, Akatsuki and Miyu returned home to celebrate their success. Over a delicious dinner, he remembered the words of his mentor, Garanth, who had entrusted Miyu to his care and asked him to protect her. As they finished their meal, Miyu retired to her room, but she struggled to fall asleep. Her mind raced with thoughts of the events that had occurred in a lasered state. She picked up a photo of her father, who had passed away, and remembered their last moments together. The memories brought tears to her eyes as she realized that her father was gone forever. In the dark of night, Miyu crept into Akatsuki's room, where he lay fast asleep and not wearing anything. She had come to use her magic power to kill him, but as she stood there, memories flooded back to her of the sincerity Akatsuki had shown her in the past. Her resolve wavered and she decided to give him a chance to make amends. Just as she was about to leave the room, Akatsuki began to thrash in his sleep, his delirious state causing him to pull Miyu's body towards his own. He pressed her against him, and do the unthinkable. The next morning, as Miyu and Akatsuki boarded the elevator on their way to school, he mentioned feeling dizzy and strange in his body, completely unaware of the previous night's events. At that time, Miyu struggled to keep her composure, memories of the previous night's incident overwhelming her as they walked through the school halls, drawing the attention of their classmates. Then Akatsuki reassured her that it was normal for transfer students to be noticed in any school. As they walked into their classroom, Akatsuki took a seat in the front row, a move that drew the ire of a male student named Kenya Onizuka. Suddenly, a short-haired female student named Izumi Chikage introduced herself and explained the seating rules while Onizuka challenged Akatsuki to a fight, unhappy with the seat being taken. Akatsuki quickly and violently retaliated against Kenya, sending him crashing into the wall. Then the student disciplinary committee summoned Akatsuki to the student council room for a hearing. Without hesitation, he entered the empty room and took a seat in the chair reserved for the head of the student council, Kiyoya. Soon after, 3 other student council members, Haruka Nanase, Ryuhei Uesaki, and Minami Aihara, entered the room and introduced themselves. At that place, the student council members were taken aback by Akatsuki's disrespectful attitude, sitting in the chair without permission, and they began to attack him simultaneously. The fight was prevented when Kiyoya entered the room and asked for an explanation. Initially, Akatsuki thought Kiyoya was challenging him and prepared to attack, but Kiyoya admitted he didn't know the reason why Akatsuki was summoned to the student council room and had no knowledge of the situation. Unbeknownst to Haruka, during the altercation, Akatsuki had managed to take her underwear and her bra, making her feel very humiliated. Ashamed, she walked out of the room, vowing to take revenge on him. After the misunderstanding was cleared up, Akatsuki returned to his class and met the female student who served as his class leader, Domoro Kazuha. During recess, Akatsuki, Kazuha, and Miyu went to the sports equipment room to get some basketballs. But they accidentally heard a sigh from inside the girls' locker room, and after checking, it turned out that Izumi was doing a fun thing with another female student. Then Kazuha immediately opened the locker room door and scolded Izumi for her indecent behavior, while the other female students could only cry and run away from the room. Unfortunately, the female student accidentally slammed the locker room door and made the 4 of them locked in the locker room. Because the temperature of the room was too cold, Kazuha struggled to pee, so Miyu and Izumi were confused thinking about how she would urinate. Ridiculously, Akatsuki even pressed their navels until they urinated on the mat at the same time. Because of that, they were upset by his actions and planned to retaliate against him. As Haruka opened the door to the changing room, the 3 girls inside quickly scattered, leaving Akatsuki lying on the ground, bruised and beaten. On the other hand, the ride home was tense and uncomfortable, with Miyu pointedly avoiding eye contact with Akatsuki. He could tell she was still upset about his mischievous behavior in the locker room. The silence between them stretched on, with her refusing to initiate any conversation. Then Akatsuki's guilt began to weigh heavily on him, as he realized the extent of his actions and how they had affected Miyu. The next day in the school canteen, Akatsuki witnessed Kenya bullying a shy student named Tanaka, who always kept his hair covering his eyes. Then Akatsuki stepped in and firmly rebuked him, much to the surprise of the other students who had grown accustomed to his abusive behavior. There he was taken aback by Akatsuki's boldness, while the other students began to speculate about Akatsuki's abilities. As a result of Akatsuki's actions, Haruka summoned Kazuha, the class leader, to the student council room. Then she urged Kazuha to be more vigilant in enforcing the class rules and regulating the behavior of the students. Because Miyu and Izumi were concerned for Kazuha, they asked if she was okay, but she reassured them that she was and asked them to focus on following the class rules. As Kazuha reminded Izumi not to bring a bag hanger to school, as it was against school rules. The pendant was a thoughtful gift from Miyu, symbolizing their friendship, and she had even made one for Kazuha as well. Shortly after, Izumi handed the pendant to Kazuha, but she refused it, despite her encouragement. Suddenly, Miyu's expression turned sad, but Izumi reassured her that Kazuha was known for her strict adherence to rules and not to take it personally. During the break, Kazuha and Akatsuki happened to be in the same elevator, but she remained silent, not mentioning Haruka's rebuke. Akatsuki, aware of the secret mission she had assigned to Kazuha to monitor and report his actions, chose not to bring it up either. Finally, Kazuha opened up to Akatsuki, sharing her feelings of inadequacy and insecurity due to her small build and perceived immaturity. Akatsuki, wanting to help her feel better, invited her to a cafe in the city center. However, since Miyu and Izumi worried that he would take advantage of Kazuha, they secretly followed them. Inside the cafe, Kazuha was confused when Akatsuki led her to a private room. She asked what he intended to do to her. Then he reassured her and shared his belief that becoming an adult is about understanding our wants and needs and learning to express our feelings freely. He encouraged her to cry when she's sad, laugh when she's happy, and speak up when she's angry. After hearing Akatsuki's words, Kazuha was surprised to learn that he understood her feelings. She thanked him for his help and understanding. Then he also added that he didn't mind that Kazuha reported all his mischievous actions to the student council, as it was part of her duty as a class leader. As they were about to leave the private room, the door suddenly opened, revealing Miyu and Izumi, who had been listening in. They had mistaken Akatsuki's intentions and began to berate him for being a lecherous man. Meanwhile, in the student council room, Haruka reported the incident in the locker room and intended to punish Akatsuki, but Kiyoya asked her to stop bothering Akatsuki and said that he would handle it himself. The next day, all the students of Babel Academy gathered in the middle of the arena for a group training session and to test each other's strengths. Each student was equipped with a special bracelet linked directly to their brain, allowing them to summon weapons at will. Miyu, with her innate magic powers, was able to easily summon her weapon, a magic wand, while Akatsuki struggled to manifest any weapon due to his lack of mastery over magic. The trainer, noticing Akatsuki's difficulty, provided him with a sword as a main weapon. He then divided the students into groups, assigning them to fight against giant bird monsters called cockatrices. When Akatsuki attempted to join Miyu's group, they rejected him outright, citing his past misconduct as a reason for not wanting to be in the same group as him. When it was Akatsuki's turn to face off against Kenya in a duel, Kenya sought to take revenge for his previous actions by launching a series of magic attacks. Initially, he felt confident in his victory over Akatsuki, but it quickly became clear that Akatsuki was more than capable of defending himself. In a surprising turn of events, he was able to defeat Kenya with a single swift strike of his sword. As the cockatrice began to run amok in the arena, Kazuha attempted to control it using a magic circle, but her efforts were in vain. Then Miyu swiftly moved in to protect her, using barrier magic to shield them both. However, the cockatrice proved to be a formidable opponent, unleashing a powerful storm attack that had the potential to turn anyone it hit to stone. However, Akatsuki soon discovered that the commotion caused by the cockatrice was orchestrated by Tanaka, who had secretly reprogrammed the monster. When confronted, he became violent and attacked Akatsuki, declaring his desire to destroy everything about Babel Academy. Just as Tanaka was about to unleash a deadly magic blast on Akatsuki, he suddenly froze, encased in a block of ice. At that time, Akatsuki was shocked to see that this was done by Kiyoya, who had just entered the room. Then he asked Kiyoya what his purpose was for intervening, but Kiyoya claimed he had the same reasons as him. Feeling annoyed, Akatsuki chose to leave the room. As Miyu struggled to fend off the cockatrice, Akatsuki rushed to her aid and summoned a giant sword using his bracelet. Channeling all his power into the sword, Akatsuki successfully defeated the monster with 7 powerful slashes. His victory restored all the students who had been turned to stone back to their original state, and they were able to resume their activities. Word of Akatsuki's triumph against the cockatrice quickly spread among the students of Babel Academy. Haruka, who still held a grudge against Akatsuki, dismissed his victory as mere luck, citing the cockatrice as a weak monster that could easily be defeated by middle-class students. Akatsuki quickly came to the aid of the other students who had been injured in the chaos caused by the cockatrice. Then Miyu approached Akatsuki, showing her concern for him, but soon after she fainted, he rushed her to the school health room. After she regained consciousness, she had vague memories of her past and was whispering to her father. Understanding the reason for her distress, Akatsuki said that he did not mind if she hates him, as he was the one who killed her father. Miyu broke down in tears and held onto his shirt, feeling overwhelmed with emotions. The next morning when Miyu had woken up and stretched her stiff body, her shirt buttons suddenly came off because of her breasts, which continued to grow. When she was taking a shower in the bathroom, she was surprised to learn that Akatsuki was spying on her from the roof of the bathroom. Then she screamed hysterically and scolded him. When they were having breakfast together, Miyu, who was still upset with Akatsuki, did not cook any food for him and only gave him a box of chocolates for breakfast. That morning, he heard the news about the arrival of members of the Children of Cross over Other Nation, or more often referred to as Cocoon on television, and he looked very disturbed by the news. During lunch at the school canteen, Miyu was curious about the Cocoon organization and asked Kazuha for more information. She explained that it is an association of young people who strive to maintain peace around the world, and the leadership committee of Babel Academy is a part of it. The organization's mission is to monitor children from other worlds and help resolve conflicts between countries by sending Cocoon children to those countries as mediators. Feeling disinterested in the organization, Miyu changed the subject and invited Izumi and Kazuha to go shopping together during the summer holidays. Then she explained that she needed to buy new bras and shirts as her breast size had continued to grow, and her current clothes no longer fit her. Hearing that, they agreed to accompany Miyu on her shopping trip during the summer vacation. Meanwhile, while Akatsuki was lounging on the school roof, a male student named Kato Motoharu approached him and launched a surprise attack. However, his reflexes were quick and he was able to easily evade all of the attacks. As he was about to strike back, Kato stopped him and explained that he simply wanted to get to know him better. Introducing himself as a student from Class A, Kato invited Akatsuki to meet with his friends after school. Later that afternoon, Akatsuki accompanied Miyu to the grocery store and then suggested they go shopping for underwear at the mall. As they arrived, she was awestruck by the grandeur of the building and the luxury of the mall's architecture. Soon after, Kazuha and Izumi soon joined them, after Akatsuki had called them to assist Miyu in her shopping. Feeling touched by his consideration for her, Miyu couldn't help but blush and began to develop feelings for him. Akatsuki jokingly suggested that he could help Miyu choose the right lingerie because he was an expert in that field. As she tried on bras offered by the shopkeeper staff, she was surprised to find that the staff had brought her so many options. The female staff revealed that some of the bras were chosen by her boyfriend, but Miyu denied that Akatsuki was her boyfriend. After the staff left, she began trying on the bras but was shocked when Akatsuki suddenly appeared from the roof of the changing room. Then Miyu shouted for help from the staff, but no one came to her aid. Finally, the shop staff returned and scolded Akatsuki for sneaking into the women's changing room. The commotion was overheard by Haruka, who happened to be trying on underwear in another changing room. Instead of apologizing, Akatsuki made crude and insulting comments about Miyu's friends, causing her to cry. Then he attempted to calm her down and helped her find the right bra size. After their shopping trip, Akatsuki invited Miyu and her friends to a restaurant for dinner, where they discussed upcoming school tests. Since he didn't have a study group, Miyu and her friends decided to invite him to join theirs. Suddenly, Akatsuki teased Miyu by asking if she was inviting him because she was worried about him, but she denied it, despite her blushing. Once they arrived home, Miyu tried on the yellow pajamas that Akatsuki had bought earlier, but he appeared to be deep in thought. Meanwhile, Kato met with his friend at a car repair shop and mentioned Akatsuki's name. Impressed by his fighting abilities, Kato planned to introduce him to the group. Elsewhere, at the Metro Hotel, Kyoya was secretly freezing guests into crystal ice, leaving the hotel staff and the police baffled by the strange incident. A few days later, Haruka tasked the other student council members with maintaining the school's safety and order in his absence. As the mid-semester test was underway, Akatsuki couldn't help but doze off, even as the test was still ongoing. But after school was over, Miyu and her friends invited him to hang out with them. However, Kato, his friend, had other plans. He stopped Akatsuki and said that he would be going with him instead. Kato was a little upset that Akatsuki had forgotten about him, but he didn't let it show. He took Akatsuki to the school's car workshop, where he introduced him to Kubota Kaito, a mechanical engineer and magic vehicle developer at the academy. So, Kubota had created several soul vehicles for the students, and Kato asked Akatsuki to try driving one of them. But when Akatsuki touched the vehicle, his body was immediately bounced away due to the high voltage. Kubota explained that the soul vehicle was a special vehicle called Sleipnir, and the only person who had successfully piloted it was Aozawa Gaoki, also known as Akatsuki's father. Hearing that, Akatsuki couldn't help but feel challenged. He tried to drive the vehicle for the second time, and to his surprise, he was able to steer it with ease. He even managed to accelerate the vehicle at high speeds. As Haruka laid eyes on the person riding the Sleipnir, she immediately recognized it as Akatsuki and scolded him, saying that only certain people who have permission from the student council members were allowed to ride the motorcycle. However, as the creator of the vehicle, Kubota had granted permission for Akatsuki to have the Sleipnir, as he believed that only Akatsuki could fully utilize its potential. Seeing that, Kato felt proud of Akatsuki's success and congratulated him, while Haruka, still not accepting the statement, intended to confiscate the vehicle. Unfortunately, when Haruka touched the Sleipnir, her body was suddenly thrown backward, and her clothes began to tear until only her underwear remained. As she continued to scold Akatsuki for the incident, he quickly threw his jacket at her, covering her naked body. Because of that, she blushed with embarrassment. That night, Babel Academy's surveillance system picked up on the presence of a group of terrorists in a hotel located in the city center. The reconnaissance team reported that the terrorist group, known as the Crimson Twilight, had taken 50 hotel guests as hostages. The news of the mass kidnapping quickly spread through various media outlets, and Miyu and her friends also became aware of the situation. They quickly devised a plan to rescue the hostages, using a magic portal created by Kazuha to sneak into the hotel. Upon arriving at the scene, Haruka and the other members of the student council immediately erected a barrier wall and began to take down the terrorists one by one. But their efforts were hindered when one of the terrorists, who had managed to evade surveillance, grabbed a young girl as a hostage. With a weapon pressed against the girl's head, the terrorists demanded that a helicopter be sent to the roof for him and his accomplices to escape. Haruka had no choice but to order one of the surveillance helicopters to land on the roof of the hotel. But not long after, Akatsuki made a bold move and snuck up behind the terrorists, managing to save the young girl from harm. While the hostages were successfully rescued, Haruka couldn't help but scold him for his reckless action, as it could have endangered the lives of the hostages. After the incident, Akatsuki returned home and took a warm bath in the bathroom to relax his body. Not long after, the doorbell rang, and Miyu, seeing Haruka at the door, assumed that he had gotten into trouble again. However, Haruka was there to return the jacket that he had lent her earlier during the incident. When she was about to leave, Miyu called out to her and invited her to join them for dinner, but Haruka politely declined the offer. Meanwhile, in the world of isekai, the officials in the Elazard Kingdom were discussing the sudden disappearance of the Demon King's daughter. They were worried that one day she may reappear and wreak havoc on their world. They knew they had to capture her as soon as possible to prevent any potential rebellion from the Demon King's followers. As summer vacation approached, Miyu and her friends decided to take a break from thinking about school tests and planned a trip to the beach. As she was changing into her swimsuit in the changing room, she was a little unsure of which suit to choose, but after a few moments of contemplation, she finally found one that fit her well. She then invited Haruka and other students to join them, and they all enjoyed their vacation together. Not long after, Kato approached them and greeted them, telling them about an annual event that was being held at the beach. The event, called the swimsuit event, was a game where everyone would have a massage number pasted on their swimsuits. One person would be randomly selected as the target, and the objective of the game was for the others to grab the target's swimsuit to win. Soon after, Akatsuki and the others decided to join the event, hoping to have some fun. However, things took a turn for the worse when Akatsuki was announced as the main target. Instead of playing the game in good faith, he used the opportunity to strip the girls of their swimsuits, causing discomfort and embarrassment to everyone involved. Back to the Elazard Kingdom, where King Elazar named Distya got the news that the daughter of the Devil King has escaped with a warrior named Akatsuki. Hearing that, Princess Listy looked surprised and did not expect that he had protected the enemy they had been fighting all this time. Meanwhile, in the human world, Akatsuki continues to fight against Miyu and her friends who attack by using their magic power. As he was about to remove Kazuha's panties, Kato quickly stopped him and said that the event would be broadcast on television so Akatsuki could not be ignorant of the underage girl. Hearing that, Akatsuki changed his plan and intended to choose Haruka as his next target. She thought that he wouldn't be able to find her in the women's changing room, but he still managed to break into the room and strip her of all her swimwear. Meanwhile, Miyu chooses to hide in the water and stay away from the crowd so that Akatsuki can't find her. But that guess was wrong because he was behind her, and immediately caught her when she was about to sink into the sea. Then he used the opportunity to do that to Miyu and have fun with her, but unfortunately, they both had to be disqualified from the game because they were outside the game area. At the same time, King Distya has gathered an army to capture Miyu, who is currently in the human world. But because the connecting portal between the human world and Elazard's world can only be passed by people from other worlds, he sent a warrior named Phil Barnett to go to the human world. Soon after, King Distya orders Phil to immediately capture Miyu and bring her back to their world. He has also declared Akatsuki a traitor for protecting their enemies by taking her away to another world. Princess Listy, who has known Akatsuki, could not accept this statement as he had once served their kingdom by defeating the Demon King alone. She decides to take matters into her own hands and asks a warrior named Zek to fight against Phil. But King Distya immediately stopped him and ordered Phil to leave for the human world. A few days after the summer vacation ended, Babel Academy held a test to determine the level of each student. The students who win the fights will get extra points and be transferred to a higher class. Akatsuki, eager to prove himself, said that he couldn't wait to fight against Kiyoya in a one-on-one duel. But unfortunately, Kiyoya said that he couldn't take the level test because he had to attend a high-level conference for Cocoon. After seeing the spirit possessed by Akatsuki, he became interested in fighting him and tried to find another way for them to fight after the Cocoon conference ended. When the promotion test ended, the supervisory team communicated all the rules to the students and displayed the map that would be their battle arena. When the level test began, Akatsuki was in the same group as Miyu, Izumi, and Kazuha. They started to fight one by one the groups they met with their respective abilities. The surveillance team that saw the incident from the monitor was amazed by the cooperation and strategy possessed by the Akatsuki group. They managed to defeat every group they faced in the battle arena, and almost managed to eliminate every rival team. A trainer said that in the group, there was a student who had the same ability as an A-level student, so it was reasonable if they could pass the test easily. However, Haruka couldn't believe it when she overheard the coach comparing Akatsuki's abilities to those of the student council members. Determined to prove him wrong, she decided to take the level test and defeat Akatsuki. That night, Akatsuki and his group were resting in a cave, having dinner on the game animals they had hunted in the forest. After dinner, he invited Miyu and the others to bathe in a nearby waterfall. He had secretly hoped to catch a glimpse of the girls, but his fantasy was quickly shattered when they all declined. Just as Akatsuki and his group were about to head back to the cave, Haruka and 2 other student council members appeared, challenging him to a fight. Without hesitation, he accepted the challenge and engaged in a fierce battle with the 3 council members using his sword. Despite his lack of magic powers, his fighting skills were unmatched, and he managed to paralyze all 3 council members with ease. As Akatsuki prepared to unleash his final attack, Kato suddenly interrupted the fight, warning them of impending danger. Akatsuki didn't hesitate for a moment when he heard the explosion from where Miyu was and sprinted towards the source to ensure her safety. The scene flashes back to a few minutes earlier. Miyu and her friends were on their way to catch up with Akatsuki, worried about his ability to defeat the 3 student council members. But just as they were about to leave, Phil emerged from the shadows, claiming to have been sent by the Elazard Kingdom to retrieve her. At that time, Miyu was shocked to see Phil, a man from the isekai world, standing before her in the human world, and even more surprised that he had managed to infiltrate the Babel Academy's battle arena. At the same time, the surveillance team reported that the security system of the Babel arena had been breached 30 minutes ago. In response, Professor Kubota ordered the security team to replace the broken system with a backup to prevent the cancellation of the fight. When Akatsuki arrived at the scene of the explosion, he found Izumi and Kazuha badly injured and lying on the ground. He searched for Miyu, but she was nowhere to be found. It turned out that she had fled in another direction, putting her safety at risk to protect her friends. Then Akatsuki immediately asked Kazuha what had happened. She explained that a mysterious man had approached them and attempted to capture Miyu. She couldn't identify the mysterious man, but she remembered that he had introduced himself as a messenger of King Distya. Meanwhile, Miyu was still trying to evade Phil's pursuit while releasing magic attacks against him. However, his magic power was far stronger than hers, and her attacks had little impact on him. After providing first aid to Izumi and Kazuha, Akatsuki entrusts them to Haruka and asks her to inform the surveillance team. Then he sets off in search of Miyu's whereabouts. As he searched, he stumbled upon Kenya, who had also witnessed Miyu in danger and was trying to help her defeat Phil. Shortly after, Kenya employed a shadow move, attacking Phil from all angles, but he remained unfazed, effortlessly dodging each strike. Then he quickly grew annoyed with Kenya's futile attempts to hit him and, with a single magic attack, he easily defeated Kenya. As Kenya lay sprawled on the ground, weak from Phil's powerful blow, he heard Phil's voice calling himself a hero, before losing consciousness. When he came to, he saw Akatsuki leaning over him, using healing energy to tend to his wounds. Akatsuki then asked Kato, who had also arrived on the scene, to take Kenya to the medical tent for proper care, while he returned to continue his search for Miyu. Upon hearing of the mysterious intruder from Haruka and the other student council members, the school committee decided to cancel the promotion test for the safety of all students. Miyu, who had run far enough away from the battle arena, decided to confront Phil, knowing that she could fight without endangering her fellow students in the area. Soon after, Phil revealed that King Distya of the Elazard Kingdom had sent him to bring Miyu back to the palace, where she would be executed to prevent rebellion from the remaining followers of the Demon King. Upon hearing this, she begged him to kill her on the spot and present her dead body to King Distya, to prevent a large and bloody battle that would cause many casualties. But since Phil refused to do that, Miyu understood that his true intention was to lure the Demon King's followers out of hiding so that the Alazered government forces could wipe them out. Determined to protect her fellow followers, Miyu even considered taking her own life, but Phil threatened to harm her friends if she dared to do so. Thankfully, Akatsuki arrived just in time to rescue Miyu from Phil's grasp, and he immediately drew his sword, preparing to engage in battle. Suddenly, a fierce and intense fight between the two isekai warriors ensued. As she watched the battle, Miyu couldn't help but feel guilty and ashamed, realizing that she had always been a burden to others and could never live a peaceful life in any world. During the fight, Phil asked Akatsuki why he would protect a descendant of the Demon King, knowing that everyone would always hunt her, and that he would be considered an enemy by all. Akatsuki replied that he couldn't stand by and watch an innocent girl get hurt, and that he believed that Miyu was a better person than her father. Phil's hatred for Akatsuki only intensified as he heard the reason for their altercation. Akatsuki, always putting on a brave front for others, had unleashed a series of attacks on him. But he refused to back down. As Akatsuki gathered all of his chakras into his hand and unleashed a powerful attack, Phil braced himself for impact. The attack hit him hard, but he stubbornly rose to his feet once more. Phil knew that Akatsuki's weakness was his love for Princess Listy, and so he tried to provoke him further by mentioning her name, taunting her that she was in a state of grief. Akatsuki was furious when he heard what Phil had done to Princess Listy. He asked him why he had destroyed the grave of Leon Esperio, her late biological father. Phil's answer was chilling. He explained that he was consumed with jealousy towards King Leon for raising outsiders like Akatsuki as heroes in their world, even though he believed it was he who deserved the title of hero. He planned to kill Akatsuki and bring Miyu to the world of isekai so that everyone would recognize his strength and finally consider him a true hero. Akatsuki, who had reached the end of his patience, immediately punched Phil in the face with all his might. Suddenly, his body was thrown backward, as Akatsuki's anger and frustration boiled over. However, Phil's sudden disappearance from Akatsuki's view caught him off guard. In a swift move, Phil had taken Miyu hostage, holding her at sword point. He demanded that Akatsuki put down his weapon and remove all the bracelets he was wearing. Sadly, Akatsuki had no choice but to comply to protect Miyu. But Phil only allowed him to keep one bracelet as a weapon. Phil revealed that his true purpose for leaving Earth was to become a warrior in the world of isekai. But all his plans were thwarted when Akatsuki arrived in isekai. With newfound confidence, he lunged at Akatsuki with his sword drawn. But Akatsuki was quick on his feet and had used the protector. He was able to release a counterattack that sent Phil tumbling to the ground. After the incident, Miyu was overwhelmed with guilt and ran to the edge of a cliff. She intended to end her own life by jumping into the abyss, feeling that she had become a burden to everyone. Just as Miyu was about to plummet to her death, Akatsuki arrived in the nick of time and saved her. He scolded her for her thoughts, and assured her that he never saw her as a burden. He understood that the Demon King, his former enemy, was a good father and decided to entrust Miyu to him. At that time, Akatsuki had sacrificed so much to protect Miyu, and he didn't want all that to be in vain because of her lack of self-worth. He comforted her and hugged her tightly before giving her a soft kiss. But just as things seemed to be looking up, he suddenly fell unconscious due to the sword poison that had scratched his neck during his fight with Phil. As Akatsuki lay writhing in pain, Miyu quickly took action to suck the poison from his neck and tried to warm his shivering body with her own. But to her surprise, he began to touch her. Then she realized that Akatsuki was not delirious and tried to resist his advances. Just as they were about to return to the medical tent, Phil reappeared and challenged Akatsuki to a duel once again. Akatsuki, believing he had locked Phil's chakra and rendered him unable to attack, was caught off guard when Phil transformed into a giant dragon and prepared to launch an even more devastating attack. Meanwhile, in the medical tent, Kazuha was filled with remorse and apologizes to the unconscious Izumi, blaming herself for her condition. But soon after, Izumi woke up and immediately asked about Miyu's well-being. Then Kazuha reassured her that Akatsuki had gone to save Miyu, and there was no need to worry. At the same time, the students of Babel Academy had gathered in the middle of the arena, trying to make sense of the chaos that had erupted. Ryuhei attempted to call Kyoya, but the call went unanswered. The surveillance team was also trying to piece together the events that had transpired. Back to Akatsuki and Miyu, who were now facing Phil once again, this time in his monstrous dragon form. Then she bravely volunteered to be bait, buying time for Akatsuki to regain his energy. However, the giant dragon's appearance was caught by the surveillance cameras and the surveillance team quickly announced the emergency to everyone. Kazuha, who had recovered, quickly rushed to the location to help Akatsuki defeat the dragon. Izumi also joined in to assist them in buying time for Akatsuki to regain his strength. Shortly after, Miyu attempted to attack Phil with her magic wand, but her attack resulted in her falling from a great height. Luckily, Haruka was able to catch her just in time, and the other student council members were also present to help defeat the giant dragon together. Everyone was in their respective positions, forming a formation to attack the dragon simultaneously. After all the magic attacks failed to paralyze the dragon, the group tried to fight it in other ways, but their efforts were still not enough to destroy it. Phil created a huge explosion that caused Miyu's friends to faint, and he threatened to kill them all if she did not come with him. However, she was confident that Akatsuki would come to save her, as he had always been a hero in her eyes. Then Phil tried to convince Miyu not to trust Akatsuki's words and claimed that he was the true warrior. But she refused to give up on Akatsuki and believed that the only person deserving of the title of hero had succeeded in killing the Demon King, and Phil was not that hero. He wondered why Miyu would continue to defend the person who killed her father, but she explained that she had discarded her identity as the daughter of the Demon King and had chosen to be with Akatsuki as a normal girl. As Phil tried to take Miyu into the world of isekai, Akatsuki arrived on his steed, Sleipnir, and rescued Miyu from Phil's grasp. He asked Miyu to tend to their injured friends, while he fought the dragon alone. As Akatsuki drew his sword to attack, Phil unleashed a parasitic poison all over the blade, attempting to destroy it. But Akatsuki had managed to neutralize the poison, allowing him to continue his attack. Then the fierce battle between them resumed. Phil unleashed a ball of light that disintegrated all the barriers in the arena and even fired a laser that caused Akatsuki's sword to shatter. Seeing the dire situation, Miyu tried to hold back Akatsuki, as he was now weaponless. However, Akatsuki was determined to defeat the dragon, even without the aid of a weapon. Miyu, inspired by his determination, approached him and offered him her bracelet for protection. Just as he was about to set off, Haruka, now clear-headed, joined them and gifted him her bracelet, giving Akatsuki the strength to wield a sword in battle. As the battle raged on, Phil unleashed a blast of fire toward Akatsuki. But the skilled warrior was quick to react, deftly blocking the flames with his sword. Then he counterattacked with a flurry of strikes, pushing Phil back with each one. The fight was long and grueling, but in the end, Akatsuki emerged victorious as the sun rose on the horizon. Miyu, who had been watching anxiously from the sidelines, rushed to Akatsuki's side and threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face as she cried tears of joy and relief. Meanwhile, the leaders of the Cocoon organization were discussing the incredible feat Akatsuki had accomplished. They were shocked to learn that despite his impressive abilities, he possessed no magic power, relying solely on the strength of his chakra. Recognizing the potential that he held, the officials began to hatch a plan to control him and use his power to shape the world according to their desires. Kiyoya, one of Cocoon's top officials, declared that he would be the one to face Akatsuki, warning the other leaders not to interfere. As the members of Akatsuki sat around the table, their discussion turned to the mysterious figure with the initials Y. They reflected on the sacrifices they had made to achieve their goals. The next day, as Akatsuki lounged on the roof of the school, his thoughts were consumed by his desire to fight and defeat Kiyoya. Despite his determination, this desire had yet to be fulfilled. Just as Akatsuki was lost in thought, Kato came to find him, bearing a message from Haruka. She had been inquiring about his whereabouts since that morning. Suddenly, he remembered the bracelet that Haruka had lent him during the battle yesterday, and he knew it was time for him to return it. As Kato walked down the hallway, his phone rang with a call from a mysterious man. The man asked about the recent battle between Akatsuki and a dragon monster in the Babel battle arena. Then he proudly reported that Akatsuki had defeated the giant dragon alone and suggested that he could be a suitable opponent to face against Kiyoya. Soon after, the mysterious man, who Kato referred to as the leader, instructed him to continue monitoring Akatsuki and report any developments in his abilities. Then he hung up and continued on his way. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Elazard, Princess Listy was growing suspicious. She had heard of the contract that Phil had made with an evil dragon and suspected that King Distya was hiding something from the rest of the kingdom. When confronted, King Distya admitted that they had indeed asked Phil to enter into a contract with the dragon, but it was deemed necessary to face a descendant of the Demon King. He revealed that he was willing to use any means necessary to capture the Demon King's daughter and conquer the Demon King's forces to dominate the isekai world completely. Upon hearing the news of Zag's death, King Disja was shocked and couldn't believe it. He had not expected that Phil or Zag could be defeated so easily. Not long after that, Zek came and delivered more troubling news. The monsters in the Black Mountain had suddenly become berserk, driven mad by the death of their dragon leader, Zag. So, Zag had previously made a contract with Phil, but his death had caused all of his followers to spiral out of control. The king knew that this was a serious problem that needed to be addressed as soon as possible. Upon learning about Phil's death, King Disja immediately sought out King Vokrem to discuss their next course of action. He decided to carry out King Disja's previous plan, which was to lure Akatsuki to their world and kill him. In the meeting, Zek reported that the kingdom's protection forces had been attacked by the Demon King's forces the previous night, and they had reached the kingdom's borders. Meanwhile, in the human world, Miyu and Akatsuki were enjoying a peaceful afternoon, relaxing on a hill, and lying on a stretch of green grass. On the other hand, Princess Listy couldn't shake the memory of Akatsuki's last message, in which he offered to help her if she ever needed it. With tears in her eyes, Princess Listy begged the gods to send Akatsuki to the world of isekai, as the situation there was rapidly deteriorating. Miraculously, he suddenly wakes up and declares that he must immediately go to the Elazard Kingdom. He explains that he feels a strong telepathic pull to go there. The next day, Miyu invites her friends over to her house, intending to tell them about her true identity. She is nervous and doubtful, but Kazuha tries to calm her down and suggests that she doesn't have to reveal everything if she's not ready yet. But Akatsuki steps in, informing them of his plan to travel to the Elazard Kingdom in another world and the purpose of his journey. Upon hearing his story and sensing his urgency, Izumi and Kazuha decide to join Miyu and Akatsuki on their journey to the other world. At the same time, Haruka arrives at Akatsuki's house, and by chance, she meets Kato, who is also on his way to see Akatsuki. Haruka explains that she came to deliver something that Professor Kubota left behind. As they talk, Kato notices a beam of light coming from inside Akatsuki's house and, with Haruka, runs inside to investigate. The light is coming from a dimensional portal that Akatsuki and the others have opened to teleport to the Elazard Kingdom. Without realizing it, Kato and Haruka also pass through the portal and find themselves transported to the world of isekai, joining Akatsuki and the others on their journey in the Elazard Kingdom. The moral that can be learned from this anime is that one should never let their mistakes or dark past define who they are, as the true self is the person who learns from those mistakes and strives to live a better life. We should have the ability to look beyond past failures and focus on the potential for growth and redemption. We also need to have the courage to face one's demons and make amends for past wrongs. And ultimately, it's about the power of hope and the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of circumstances.